right. Hi, everybody. We'll give everybody just a couple of seconds. It seems like more people are starting to enter. You are in this session to learn more about the Stanford Tobacco Prevention Toolkit and the Cannabis Awareness and Prevention Toolkit. Welcome as you make your way over. We'll just give another minute. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Want to welcome you to this session, our virtual session. And I think we're at the end of the day, so thank you for hanging in there all day. My name is Bonnie Halpern-Felsher. Some people call me Dr. Bonnie, if you may have heard that. I am a professor of pediatrics in the Division of Adolescent Medicine, Department of Pediatrics at Stanford University. And I am the founder and executive director of the Tobacco Prevention Toolkit and the Cannabis Awareness and Prevention Toolkit. We are predominantly going to focus on the Tobacco Prevention Toolkit, but really both toolkits look similarly. So very excited to have you here. Some people are putting in their names or entering hello. That's fantastic. Thank you. I do want to make this a little bit interactive, if at all possible. Would love to hear from people. If you've ever used the Tobacco Prevention Toolkit, if you have, please put in the question that you have. That would be fantastic to hear. And maybe a little bit about specific things that you would like to hear about. Please go ahead and put in there as well. So let me go, and my background is I'm a developmental psychologist, and my research focuses on adolescent and young adult risk behavior with a particular focus on adolescent tobacco use, particularly e-cigarettes, as well as cannabis. But I've done research in many different areas, and we translate that research into policies and prevention, including the toolkits. So let me go ahead and get started. For those of you who don't know, and I was encouraging people, if you want to go ahead and put into the chat whether or not you've ever used the toolkit, and then also anything that you might want us to particularly focus on, please let us know. The Tobacco Prevention Toolkit can be found at tobaccopreventiontoolkit.stanford.edu, and I encourage you to go ahead and, sorry, my dogs upstairs are not liking tobacco today. And so the Tobacco Prevention Toolkit.stanford.edu, would love it if you would go ahead and follow along as we go through. Because of the format, I can't go live to the actual toolkit, so I'm going to be showing you slides about it, but then we'll take breaks periodically. And if you're able to switch screens on your computer and actually open up the toolkit, then we'll be able to be more interactive as we go. You don't need to do that yet. All right. So what is the Tobacco Prevention Toolkit, for those of you who are not aware? It's completely free, and that's really important for you to know. We don't sell this. We are actually well-funded to be able to bring it to you all for free. It is interactive, and it's completely online. And the toolkit has a number of different activities. That's one of the things that we think sets us apart from some of the other tobacco prevention curriculum. We've got crash courses and discussion guides and fact sheets, and I'm going to bring you and show you a bunch of those, again, in slide format, since I can't actually go live into it as well. So I do want to tell you our core team. We've got a number of people on our team, the Tobacco Prevention Toolkit and the Cannabis Toolkit team. As I said, I'm the founder and executive director. We have two co-founders, Ira Sakanoff, who may be listening, Stephen Smooin, and then Adrian Lazaro and Richard Ceballos are the project co-directors. And actually, Richard is on with us now and will be monitoring the chats. And I'll be answering most of them live. But if there's some quick things like I'm lost, I can't figure it out, he'll go ahead and answer. And then Sheila McLaughlin is an important person for you to know. She is the one, if anybody's requesting a free training, which we do, and we'll talk about that as we go. But if you're interested in having a more detailed training, this is more of an overview today, but a more detailed training of our toolkit, and you put in a request, actually Sheila, who's our associate director for outreach, will be the one to get in touch with you and coordinate that. Okay, so what is this toolkit? It's for educators, particularly, to teach lessons The audience are predominantly educators of middle and high school students. So for the educators to teach middle and high school students and be able to help them understand the basic information involved in all tobacco products. So we do have information on traditional cigarettes. We have information on hookah, smokeless tobacco, and then, of course, a lot of information on all different forms of electronic cigarettes, vaping products, including Juul and Puff Bar. The goals of the toolkit are also to help teenagers gain awareness of the marketing strategies involved in marketing e-cigarettes to teens, and really helping adolescents understand that you're being targeted and therefore you should try to resist using these products, because teens don't like to know that they've been marketed to. We have a section on refusal skills, so to help adolescents gain refusal skills is also important. And then ultimately, of course, the goal of the toolkit is to help either prevent, or for those who are using, to help them stop using. So I do want you to know that the toolkit has been developed based on evidence. There's a lot of theory that went into it. So we launched the toolkit in September of 2016. We started working on it around 2009. So it took quite a long time, and really want to thank, I didn't have a slide on that, I should have, the Tobacco Related Disease Research Program, the California Department of Education, CVS Health Foundation, and a bunch of donors who've really contributed a lot to this program. So the toolkit is based in theories both of change, theories of change, theories in how adolescents are best educated, positive youth development, and then theories and research on adolescent tobacco use that we've conducted in our lab, as well as many others. So we've also developed it based on many partners and partnerships, several of which are right now probably listening, people who have in school districts and educators and 2P coordinators who really have partnered with us to develop this. It is evidence informed, and it's also, we proudly can say we finally have our first paper published, really showing that the toolkit does change adolescents' knowledge, attitudes, and intentions to use e-cigarettes. The other thing, since it's online, we have the ability to revise and update anything very quickly. So when Juul first came on the market, we were the first to put on a Juul prevention curriculum. That Richard was the first to help us launch on that. Richard Ceballos, who's on with us now. When Puff Bar came on and we were concerned about that, we were able to quickly add some information on Puff Bar. So we're very up to date. We also fact check everything. We have people, adolescent medicine physicians and psychiatrists who are specialists in addiction medicine. We have psychiatrists and others who have helped us. So that's all important for you to know. So this table is the curriculum table. And I want you to take a second, if you're able to follow along, to see if you can find this on the toolkit. And then after, in a second, Richard will go ahead and put in the actual link to it so you can always find it. So see if you can go live on the toolkit yourself. Again, I can't, but if you can, and see if you can find this. Give it just a second to do that. All right. So Richard's going to go ahead and put in the link so you can actually find where this curriculum table of contents is. This is overwhelming, we get that, but it gives you a sense of all the different topics that are on our toolkit. So if you look in each of the columns, there are different modules. So we have the way the toolkit's outlined is modules. Within modules, we have units. Within units, we have lessons and activities and things like that. So we've got something on everything tobacco. That's where you're going to find information on menthol as a social justice issue and what's menthol got to do with it. You're going to find information and fact sheets on cigarettes. We've got a big module on e-cigarettes and vape pens, and that's got a lot of interactive information and activities on there. We've got hookah information, smokeless, and nicotine addiction. We also have a whole bunch of information for you on positive youth development, which is there as well. All right. And Richard, when you get a second, if you could put that link in, please. That'd be great. All right, I'm going to move on. All right, so within our toolkit, oh, there we go. Thank you, Richard. Sorry, I didn't see that. And I promise I will be answering your questions as we go once we get to points that make sense to interject those questions. So we have PowerPoints on our toolkit. We have a number of different ones. Like I said, on e-cigarettes, these we're showing you Juul. Some of the PowerPoints are interactive. Some of the PowerPoints have embedded videos within them. So you see here, the Understanding Addiction as a Disease, the Weight 21 is an embedded video in there. What's also important to know is in each of our talking points, in each of our PowerPoints in the slide, we have teacher talking points. And the reason for this is now many of you who are listening have either used the toolkit or maybe have been doing tobacco prevention for many years, and you don't really need a script. You know it. But for some of you are new to teaching tobacco or cannabis prevention and education, that may be helpful to have a script. So every slide has teacher talking points. And in it, you actually have a script, things that you can say on there, even down to click. So if you want to know for the animated slides, when do I advance the slide, it says it for you. And then every picture and every slide we have is sourced, and you'll see those in the teacher talking points as well. And those teacher talking points are in the notes section of the toolkit, of each slide, excuse me. We also have activities. So it's really important, as you know, when you're going to talk to teens about, when you're going to talk to teens when you're going to talk to them about any tobacco and try to help prevent anything, you can't just lecture like I'm doing to you all. You need to get them up, have them move, and be interactive. So we have T-charts that you can see. What do you know, or have you heard about Juul? And then you can project that up, the T-chart, or print it. When you're back in class, when you're online, you could do it and type in the answers, and then keep that as a running tab of what do teens know, and then what do students learn at the end. We've got activities where we get you to stand up and move and have students go throughout the classroom. We have worksheets and so on. And we also have a number of fact sheets on there, everything from hookah, and then a number of different fact sheets on e-cigarettes and vape pens. Want you to know that when you find these, and in fact, we'll take a second to see if you can find some fact sheets. When you do, and then Richard can put up the links. When you find those fact sheets, we also do have them now translated into Spanish, and then also into simple and traditional Chinese. So those fact sheets are there. What we've learned is sometimes teachers like to just give the students the fact sheets, have them do some worksheet off of them. But you can also, when we're back in person in school, you can also print these fact sheets in large versions, large format, and put those around your school as well. You can put them in doctor's offices, in your nurse's offices, wherever it is. So we have. I do want to also tell you, I realize we didn't put a slide up on here, but we also have, actually, let me pause there. See if you could, those of you who are following along, see if you can find, I'm having trouble seeing all the questions, sorry, but hopefully Richard can send them to me. Trying to, if you could, see if you can find a couple fact sheets. See if we can find those, and then Richard can put up a couple of slides. Richard, sorry. If you can find, and then Richard will put up a couple links to those fact sheets. If you can find a couple of those. There are some fact sheets that are under the e-cigarette module. There are some that are under the cigarette or the first one on everything tobacco. See if you can find those. Okay. Sorry, trying to figure out the Q&A piece here. All right. So the other thing I want to tell you, and see if you can find this, this is important. We now on the Toolkit have an entire section just devoted to COVID and tobacco use. So why don't you see if you can find that, and Richard will put in the link. There we go. Rich is putting in the link to the SIGs in a pod fact sheet. That's a really popular fact sheet. See if you can find. So we also have a lot of information on our toolkit now on COVID. We have a fact sheet and infographic that we developed in a consultation, as really collaboration with California Department of Public Health. And in that fact sheet gives information that talks about the immune system. And when you vape or you smoke, you influence your immune system, and how through doing that, you're significantly more likely to then potentially be diagnosed with COVID. And so we give a lot of information on that, a lot of resources, a lot of science. So please feel free to use that when you're talking to adolescents. It's also on our live remote learning curriculum that I'll show you in a minute. But we do have the resources on there, and I do want you to know that. And that fact sheet, the infographic on COVID and smoking, has been translated into Spanish and Chinese and Vietnamese, and a whole bunch of languages are on there on that COVID page. So please feel free to use those. We also have a version, they have the 1-800-QUIT-NOW, the California hotline, but we also have versions that are blank in the middle. And that way, if you want to add your own district or county, or if you're not, I don't know if we have people from other states, you can put on your own information there as well. So I want you to know that and be able to see that. All right. All right, we'll move on. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. All right, so there was a question about what can we do to encourage youth not to become engaged in tobacco. So really, I would say, obviously I'm going to say use the toolkit. So the toolkit, a lot of the messages that we give on the toolkit and where the toolkit comes from is, first of all, that you're being marketed to. And if we could tell adolescents that they're being marketed to, that they're the one being targeted, they're the one being duped. That's a lot where the Truth Initiative campaign came from is, look, they're after you, and the industry knows that if we get you addicted as a 16-year-old or a 14-year-old, we've got you pretty much addicted for life. So that's one of the messages that we think is very important. Research shows, and our toolkit talks about talking to them about the products and the health effects, not just long-term, but short-term. If you use, you can get Ebola, you can get COVID, you're hurting your lungs, you're making it harder to dance, you're making it harder to have sports, you're making it harder for a lot of activities, it's harder to concentrate. Those are other ways in which we can really help emphasize to teens that it's harmful. Also, teens really have a lot of misperceptions about e-cigarettes. They really think that they still think that they're harmless water vapor. They still think that there's not much to worry about, and they think that they don't have nicotine in them. So a lot of what we do on the toolkit, like the SIGs in a pod that Richard just put in the link to, is to really try to equate e-cigarettes, particularly Juul and Puff Bar and the newer products, to say, look, they have a tremendous amount of nicotine. They have salt-based nicotine, which is more harmful because it's more highly concentrated and it gets absorbed to the body and into the brain faster. And we really try to dispel those myths that it's not harmless water vapor, there's nicotine. Then you get teens who say, if I'm not using nicotine. Well, they probably are. Most teens right now are using nicotine, but even if they're not, if they're using the very low dose nicotine, older e-cigarettes, the flavors themselves can be harmful. So we talk about that as well. So hopefully I will be able to, hopefully that answers your questions around that, but please type in if you want more specifics. All right, so back to what the toolkit has. We have the Kahoots. I don't know if anybody here has ever used a Kahoot, but the Kahoot are games that you can do, quizzes that you can do either through people's phones or through their computers, and a question comes up. Usually ours are about 10 questions. Question comes up after you sign in, and then you have 4 answers, and it's both a matter of speed and getting it, speed and accuracy, and then it'll have different winners as you go. So, whoever gets it correct and fastest is the top person. It'll show that name up there, and then as you go through all 10 questions, you realize people are changing leadership role positions, and suddenly at the end you have a winner, and that's really fun to be able to see that, and it helps them learn along the way. So those Kahoots are really great. Now, we do have educators who say, I don't have the capacity to do internet in real time in a classroom, or my school doesn't let me, so we can't do Kahoot. Not a problem. We actually have the PDF versions of the Kahoot quizzes for you that you're seeing here on the left, and then on the right, you've got the answers. So we make it as easy for you as possible. And there's a Kahoot quiz at the end of every unit. The other thing that we have are discussion guides. These are at the end of every unit as well, sometimes lessons, sometimes modules, but generally at the end of unit. And they are ways of having a conversation at home. So when we were developing the toolkit and we were developing, and we had focus groups with parents, they said, you know, we don't feel like we're comfortable doing our own education at home on tobacco. We really do want you to do the education. Thank you. But we'd like to try to follow along with you at home. So these discussion guides are something that if you're an educator or work with educators, you can assign to the students to bring and work with their families, whether it's a parent or a guardian or anybody, and have them to have that conversation that follows along with what they're learning in school. And then you could either have it where they bring back the answers, or if it's a topic like, have you ever heard of somebody smoking and you're worried that they're going to have conversations that are breaking confidentiality to report back to the classrooms, then just have them go home and have that conversation and bring back a signed note saying, we discussed, but you don't have to even ask what they discussed about if you want to keep that confidential. Thank you. Somebody said, love using Kahoots. We do too. It's fun. I wish I could do one here. All right, that's the discussion guides. Crash courses. So we're also developing this, particularly around the brain science. We had a lot of educators who said, we really want to teach this, but we need education ourselves. Excuse me. We need to understand more about the brain, more about the neurons, more about nicotine, so that way we can be better educators. And mind you, this was before we started going around and doing trainings, and we also give a lot of talks on e-cigarettes and what e-cigarettes are. So it was before that. So we have on our toolkit, sometimes it's at the module level, sometimes at the unit level, a bunch of information for you as educators. Little bits, and you can see here the writing, little bits of information on there. So thank you, David. Richard's putting up a discussion guide. I want everybody, see if you can find the crash course before Richard puts it up. See if you can find the crash course on the brain. See if you can go and find that. Give you a minute, and then Richard will put it up. Okay, anybody find it? And then Richard can put it up. So if you go to the bottom, go to the addiction. So somebody's asking, Richard, can you share where we need to go to find these things? Richard's been putting up the links to them, so hopefully you can see those. But it's all on the tobacco prevention toolkit.stanford.edu. All right, I'm going to move on. Oh, so if you look to the left under Ask a Question, you'll be able to see the answer of where a lot of these questions are. And then maybe also look under Answers. But on the left of your screen, you'll see New Questions and Answers. And that way we can see, it says, look to the left under Ask a Question, and that's where we're putting in the links so that way you can see them. Okay? All right. All right, so ways to use the toolkit. There's probably 100 activities and lessons and information on here. We know that you can't necessarily be able to do it all at once, to be able to use the whole toolkit at once, or even over a course of a month. It's a lot. So we really don't mind how you use them. We don't mind if you want to use one slide or one activity, or use it all. You can use it to develop your own lesson. We don't mind if you do that. You can take some of the materials and integrate it with other materials, and that's great. You can use it for PTA meetings or parent meetings, or have your youth and do peer-to-peer education. That's all great to be able to do as well. And if you want to use them to present at annual conferences. The only thing that we ask is that if you use our tools and any of our slides, that you keep the logos on there. We have our toolkit logo on there, and we have our toolkit website at the bottom usually, or at the top. We ask that you please keep our website on there. Oh, good. Thank you. Somebody found it. Yay. Finding some of these things, the nicotine addiction. So we really ask that if you, whatever you use that you do, we've had issues where we've had other organizations and groups take some of our materials and not keep the logo on and act as if they developed it themselves, or some people have actually tried to sell it. That's not okay. But if you want to use it in any capacity, please do. We encourage that. All right. So let's talk a little bit about some specific modules and sections to give you a little bit. So actually, before I show that, why don't you all go and see if you can find Unit 6 of the e-cigarette module. Go to Unit 6 and see if you can find, you don't have to click on it, but see if you can find Unit 6 of the e-cigarette module and the Vox video that's on there. It's a really great video. I'll just give you a few seconds to see if you can find that. Anybody found it? Want to enter it in? It looks like this. Unit 6, what are joules and other pod-based systems about? And you can see there. And this is the Vox video that we have on there that we put. And it's a really good video. It's a little bit outdated. So this is probably the unit. This is probably the unit that's the most commonly used. And this is the one where you'll find a lot, the entire module on e-cigarettes. You can see the modules at the top, e-cigarette, vapes, and pod-based. You can see it all at the top. But this one in particular has, and when you dive into it, and by the way, every landing page of each of the modules has the learning objectives. And then for every lesson, we do have preparation and the materials that you need to be able to put together. So good, somebody found it. Thank you. We have all that information there for you. On there, so you can click, it's accordion style, it expands it, gives you all the materials that you need to be able to prepare for your lesson, and it's all right there. Again, even all the scripts for you. And everything is easily downloadable, printable. We've even had feedback that, hey, some of the information was too inky or color and too expensive for us to print, so we've made simplified versions for you. That's all there. All right, so that's Unit 6. So we do have an entire unit just focused on e-cigarettes. I mentioned the what's menthol got to do with it. We have an entire unit, entire unit on menthol. And I think this is particularly important now. So when we're trying to think about Black Lives Matter and diversity, and you want to bring a lesson to that, here's a lesson you could talk about menthol and how menthol was really used to attract and hook particularly people of Black people, but also we know people who are Latino and LGBTQ and other people have been really targeted by the tobacco industry using menthol as a way. And so this unit talks about what menthol is and how it's a numbing agent, and how, as my colleague Phil Gardner always says, it makes the poison go down easier. That we talk about there. We also talk about the advertisement, and then we have an activity to help adolescents really understand the social justice around menthol. So that's a nice, not a very long lesson that you can use with your teenagers, your students. The other thing that's important to know is we have several curriculums. So if you look, as I said, in the toolkit, it's pretty massive. The toolkit has a lot of different things in there. And so our original thinking was, well, we'll just have it where educators can hunt and decide what they want to use. And then all of a sudden we realized, wow, that's a lot of information for somebody. So instead, we develop sample curriculum. So let's say that you're teaching and you only have 1 hour the entire semester. we have an example of a 1 session or 1 hour curriculum. They're actually 50 minutes. Or let's say you have an entire week to do a unit on tobacco, then we have that for you on there. I don't know if you can see my cursor moving, but you see right here the 5-session curriculum. So that's where we pull it all, and it's in an accordion style where you go in there. You don't have to hunt throughout the whole website. You go in and you find them within that section, and all the activities are there for you. And in these 5 and 8 and 10 session, we have a little bit on the brain, a little bit on other tobacco products, a lot on nicotine addiction, and of course a lot on e-cigarettes. And then there are activities as well as lectures, as well as week-long activities that can be done. That's in there. We also have subject relevant material. My fantasy has always been that during, say, a Red Ribbon Week, you had every school, every class in the whole, or every class in the whole school, or every school in the whole district, everybody focusing on tobacco prevention. So in science, you're maybe talking about the chemicals, and in history, maybe you're talking about the history of the tobacco industry. And then maybe in writing, you're writing a letter to the editor of a newspaper about being upset about e-cigarettes attracting youth or something like that. So if you want subject relevant material, so what lessons do we think would be most applicable in different classes, you would find that there. So why don't you take a second and see, this is at the bottom of the landing page, Tobacco Prevention toolkit.stanford.edu, the very beginning of our toolkit. Towards the bottom, you'll see the subject relevant material, and you'll also see the this one here, the sample curriculums. Why don't you see if you can find that quickly, and Richard can put in a screenshot to it if need, or a link. Anybody find it? Just at the beginning of the page. You'll also find a link to the COVID page on our landing page as well. So you can get there as well. All right, let me know if you're confused and can't find it. We also have information. If you go to the Positive Youth Development landing page part, you'll see information on refusal skills. And we have 3 different activities: creative ways to say no, refusal skills, a reel that they do, and an interactive piece of that, and a wheel of refusal. So we have basically like skits that people can work on, and ways to say and practice saying no. And that's really nice to be able to see. And and these are great for middle and high school students. By the way, pretty much all the lessons are meant to be for middle and high school students. We are right now working with some of our community partners to specifically identify activities and lessons that would be better for different ages, but really was meant and developed for people across the ages. All right, we also have frequently asked questions. So that is under the landing page. When you first land, under About, up in this top left, if you click on that, it gets you to the frequently asked questions. And this is everything from how do I find, or what do I use, and how do I go about doing things there. All right. So why don't you see if you can find the frequently asked questions page. Anybody found it? Okay, I'm going to keep going. Oops. All right. Now getting to the fun part, which is we now have a remote learning curriculum. So everything I showed you, yes, you could do if you're on Zoom or online training, however you're doing it, come the fall or this past spring. A lot of schools were still doing online education, of course. And you certainly can use everything I just showed you. But we've heard, of course, it's hard, and we know it's hard to teach remote learning. So we actually took very early on in March, when we first started sheltering, actually before we started sheltering, we knew it was about to happen. We developed a new remote learning curriculum, and the remote learning curriculum is specifically around vaping. And what we did was we wanted to have something online like others, but rather than just a bunch of slides, there's actually video playing for you, and there's a Word document as well as a Google document that you can use to interact with other people, with your students. So let me go through this a little bit and see if you have questions on it. So the goals of this remote learning curriculum is really to address the needs of you educators to allow you to provide the vaping curriculum remotely to your students. And in the curriculum, you'll find, similar to the rest of our toolkit, information about the health risks of using e-cigarettes and vapes, including Juul and Puff Bar. The increased risk of COVID is in there as well. We do have a slide and information on there. We also talk about the marketing tactics that are used. So we have a few different ways that you can use our remote learning content. Before I continue, why don't you see if you can find the remote learning, because I think you're going to want to follow along, and then Richard can put in the information, put in the link. So the remote learning, if you go to the landing page, and then you'll see a link to it, you just click on it, and it'll bring you over to the remote learning. So why don't you take a minute to see if you can find it. And then Richard, when you get a minute, if you don't mind putting in the link to it, please. Good, somebody found it. Okay. All right, so you'll see that there are two different modes. You can either present, somebody else found it, let me just see. Good. Okay. You can either present the PowerPoints, similar to what I've been showing you, or you can use YouTube videos. So you can do it either way. And you can use the Word version of our document. This is a questionnaire to really help the teens follow along with you. So maybe you'll have 3 PowerPoints, and then you'll say, now students, please complete questions 1 to 4. And it asks them questions, true, false. It asks them questions about why teens are using, what they want to learn, what they already know about these products. So we have that document both in Word and in a Google Drive format as well. So you can do a couple different ways. We have TIY, which is teach it yourself. All right. After DIY. I know we're trying to be cute here. And in this case, if you're going to teach it yourself, so you're an educator and you want to teach your students, then you would pick up the PowerPoint, you would have that on your computer, you would download it, and then you can either use the Word version or you can use the online Google form. If you either one, you can email the link or email the document to the students. They can do it. If they do it on the Google form, you'll get the information back right away. If you want the students to do it on Word document on that form, then they can just email it back to you if you want to see how they're doing. The pros and cons of teach it yourself, probably pretty self-explanatory, but if you want to do it yourself and teach this way, then you can really specialize or tailor the content and the slides to meet the needs of your students, whatever it is that you would like to make sure that they learn. You can put in your own style of teaching. You can even change some of the slides around, and you can check in with the students, ask them questions, see how they're doing, pause, have more opportunity for discussion. The cons are, you, of course, as an educator, have to spend the time. Now, we're hoping that you do have the time to be able to do this, but we also know that that's not always the case. Some of you have children at home, you have dog barking like I do sometimes, and it can be a little bit challenging. So you may need more time for preparation and may not be able for that to happen. You also may not have a full 50 minutes and maybe have to split up the time to be able to use the content. Or you can move, if you want this, instead of having a full classroom pace, if you want the students to be able to do it on their individual time, then a teach it yourself may not work. So we also have the learn it yourself version. And in this case, basically, we have the videos already put up on YouTube, and the links are on the links of the YouTube are on the website, and Richard sent around that link a minute ago. So if you have this, you basically can tell students, I want you to either watch the whole thing or I want you to watch certain portions of it. And in those slides, Richard, as well as some of our youth advisors, are actually reading the slides, and then there'll be times where they'll say, pause here and go fill out questions 1 to 3 on your Word worksheet or the Google form. So this gives the teachers the opportunity to assign something to be more at the pace of the students, to hear directly from the Toolkit team. You don't have as much preparation, certainly. It's flexible. Students can do it whenever they want. You could assign it whenever they want. The videos are either all together or we have them broken up into 2 to 4 5-minute snippets of videos. And so students can learn at their own pace. But there are definitely cons to it. You're not teaching. You're not meeting with your students. There's no peer-to-peer discussion. There's less student-teacher discussion. So you don't really know if they're understanding the materials. And then the other problem is that they may pretend to complete it when they really haven't. Now, you certainly know if they've completed the worksheets because they have to mail it back to you or email it back to you, but you don't know if they've actually listened to it. But there are 2 options, and you decide what you want to use. You can also do any combination. You can do where you do some slides with them and then you assign them like maybe the brain part to go listen to and then come back to class together to do the rest of the slides. So you really can decide how you want to do it. Now, what we have coming up soon, and hopefully in about a month or month and a half, is we actually are taking some of this material and actually putting it in what's a new format called WordPress, where you actually can assign students to hit play, and the entire thing is not just online, but it's interactive. So they hit play and it reads them the slides, or they read the slide, and then they've got a game that they'll do. And the game is like, how much nicotine is there? What are some of the chemicals that we're worried about? It has matching, it has fill-in, it has true, false. And then there are embedded videos in there as well. So we're really, really excited about this new piece that's going to be coming, that we're going to start with this short version, the remote learning, the short 1-hour version. And then we're going to move to the healthy futures, which I'll tell you about in a second, and then to maybe the 5-session curriculum. So stay tuned. Keep coming back to the toolkit, because we are building. We were actually going to do this anyway, but with COVID and sheltering, we're speeding up the process to really try to get the materials to be more interactive, more gamified online, to make it, because right now it's online, meaning you download it or you it's on there, but now it will actually be where students can do the learning online. Healthy futures, I realize I didn't put any slides on those, but why don't you take a minute and see if you can find the healthy futures our alternate to suspension curriculum. See if you can find that. Look at the landing page and then go from there. And Richard will put that in the chat button for us too. Anybody find the healthy futures alternative to suspension? Thank you, Richard. Richard put the link in there so you can see it. So our philosophy as a toolkit, to be perfectly blunt, is if you catch a student vaping, suspending them. What's the expected time frame release for the online piece of it? I would say we're hoping about a month to have at least some of it. We may not be able to have it all, but at least to have the hour version in about a month is what we're hoping for. All right. So thank you for that. That's a good question. Now, with the healthy futures, alternative to suspension, we really think if a student's caught vaping, or if you know a student who's vaping, suspending them doesn't work. They go home and vape. We don't really meet their needs, which is they're struggling, they're stressed, they're addicted. A lot of their friends are using, so they're trying to figure out how not to. And a lot more students are reaching out for help now. So our goals of the alternative to suspension is healthy futures. We're trying to help students understand why they're using, what they're using, and how we can move them towards quit. So the theory behind it is very much based in motivational interviewing, and it marches a student through. We have a 1 hour, a 2 hour, and a 4 hour version. You can look at it, and it marches the students through to be able, and we have a cool worksheet that they use to try to understand what the health effects are, how much are they using, what are some of the effects of using these e-cigarettes that they're using, and how much money are they spending that they could be spending on other things, and then really seeing where they are in their willingness to quit, and see if we can move them at the end of the session to realize, probably this isn't the best thing for me to be doing, and let me try to quit. So that's our Healthy Futures. We really encourage people to use it and give us feedback. And with the Healthy Futures, that will also be going more online very soon, meaning, again, this more gamified, interactive piece of it will be coming soon as well. We're hoping within a month or a month and a half or so will be coming online. So please ask any questions. We have a few minutes left, but if you want to keep hearing about updates, we really encourage you to follow us on social media. Either we're on Facebook and we are on Twitter, and we really do push out all kinds of information, updates that the toolkit has. We also put on advocacy updates, and if you're interested in advocacy, it would be on there for you as well. We have information on the latest research we put on there. So it's a great webinars. We've been doing a whole lot of webinars on e-cigarettes and on cannabis. So we encourage you to do that as well. And so I'll let you join there if you're interested. Oops. Oh, we're not going to be able to do that. All right. So let me pause there, and any questions that you might have that I can answer, please shoot them through. We have about 10 minutes, 12 minutes. Or if anybody's used a part of the toolkit that they like or that they're struggling with, shoot through the question. So we can't really do breakouts, but I do want to make sure. And any suggestions for new symptoms of reporting for kids vaping when they aren't? For new systems of reporting for kids, do you mean reporting to like the CDC, or do you mean reporting to? Sorry, reporting to whom? How are schools addressing tobacco use during the pandemic? I don't actually know directly how schools are. I think you would all know better about how they're dealing with addressing tobacco use during the pandemic. But, we do know that it's hard right now, right? It's hard to know what students are doing. There's a lot of questions of are they using more or less? Are they home vaping more or less? How do we help them? And it's really a struggle, which is why very much we moved to the remote learning curriculum that we have, because we're really, I'm going to bring that back. Why we moved to the remote learning curriculum and creating this even more interactive piece is we were really hoping that schools will be able to continue some of these vaping lessons, even if they're not back in school. And if you have limited time, then we're hoping, at least if nothing else, give students the learn it yourself version of the remote learning curriculum. So at least if you don't have time to do direct teaching, you're doing it indirectly. And then, so reporting to school staff so they can do interventions. I don't know systems. That's a good question. Richard, please chat me if you have an answer for this one. I think, some schools, if it's a little harder now, but if students, if you're trying to encourage the schools to do interventions, I think many schools are aware now of the vaping problem. Not everyone, but a lot are, as well as cannabis and what's going on there. And I think if you're a parent or you are a school staff and you're seeing it happen, please, I think it's important to report it. I mean, I don't think you're supposed. Sorry, I'm still not 100% sure what the question's asking. But if you're saying should we report it to parents, I should say that on the remote learning curriculum, we do have an example letter where you can report to the parents if you catch a student using. And the idea is not to be punitive, but to say that we're trying to help the student. So we do have that. But I do think that, and if we have a student who's self-reporting to say that I'm using and I need some help, we really do encourage you to get help. There are, in addition to our toolkit, there are lots and lots of resources. There's the 1-800-QUIT. There's the Becoming an X, which is the Truth Initiative texting app. There are different tools that you can use to help young people quit. We don't have a lot of research validated tools right now, which is really hard. But we definitely encourage you to, and we're building out some new cessation materials as well. And we're also working with healthcare providers. So if you know students directly who are vaping or a parent who would like some help, feel free to email us. The email that you can email it to Tobe through the Tobe Prevention Toolkit at stanford.edu. And in doing that, in doing that, we can also answer questions. You can also email me directly, Bonnie H, BONNIEH at stanford.edu. And I would be happy to help you. And again, if I'm misinterpreting the questions, please retype it. I think I'm not sure if I'm totally understanding it. Somebody asked, can you share some of the student feedback from your recent student event? Oh, yeah. So we did, thank you. So we've been doing a series of webinars for parents and healthcare providers and educators and pretty much anybody on e-cigarettes, 90-minute ones. We've had 2 on e-cigarettes and 1 on cannabis. We also did one for youth, and we had our youth advisory group do a webinar for youth. And we had about 70 youth attend, and it was phenomenal. And it was focused on coping during this time of COVID and how to cope through other means other than smoking or vaping or using cannabis. And the feedback was fabulous. The students loved it. The students felt very supported. There were clearly students on there who were using, and I mean students in the audience, who were using, who were trying to understand how to quit, who were trying to understand resources. And we also had a lot of people on the on who were interested in being peer-to-peer educators. So I think that's the other thing to think about is, and we're actually going to build out a new piece, I think, on our toolkit for getting peers to engage in being peer educators. And that was, I think, the best thing about that webinar was I did a little e-cigarette 101 information session for about 20 minutes. But other than that, it was completely run by the youth. And it was really, really appreciated because I think the students there are a lot of webinars for youth that are run by adults, either healthcare providers or educators, but this was really supported by students, and I think it went great. So we'll do another one probably end of August, early September, so stay tuned. That's why I say follow us on our social media, because we're going to be having more webinars in the late summer. All right, we have about 5 more minutes. Any other questions? Oh, are there tools that would help educators determine appropriate lessons for middle school? Is every lesson appropriate? So what I was saying before is, yeah, it was originally developed and really validated for middle and high school, so 6th through 12th grade, but there are definitely lessons that we think are more geared towards middle school and more geared towards high school. And we are in the process of creating a grid so that way you'll know this is a lesson that's more geared to one age or another. The PowerPoints and the general information is really meant to be used for all grades. And to be honest, we've had educators use it with 3rd and 4th graders as well. But stay tuned. We are creating that grid. And if you're interested and you want to email me directly, we can give you some advice on specific lessons that you can use for middle school versus high school. Again, bonnieh@stanford.edu. You can also email through the toolkit. We've got a contact us. Other questions? Any COVID-related resources or advice related to vaping? So yes, like I said, on that landing page, you'll link to, and Richard, did you already put it in the chat? The COVID page, if maybe do it again if you don't mind. We do have COVID-related resources on there, a whole bunch of information on the relationship between COVID and smoking and vaping, and I can't talk about it, but stay tuned. There'll be some new information coming out in early August, some new research on that. So message me after August 11th. I can give you more information on COVID and vaping. But we have some resources on the toolkit, some science on there. We have the Factsheets that I mentioned, the infographics in different languages that have really gone viral across the country. It's been great seeing people use those that you can customize. And then we have some resources for helping adults and teens quit on that COVID page. So please feel free to use that. And Richard will put that on again. Thank you. See if there are any other questions. We are here for you. We love feedback. We love feedback on wish lists, broken links, incorrect information we fix very quickly. Things like a wish list. Boy, we wish you would have a lesson on. We hear you. We do take that information. We might be able to fix it or do it right away, but this really is a community effort, and we really do appreciate all the feedback we've received over the last few years, and we're very responsive to feedback and to ideas. So please do have those coming our way. Well, we thank you so much for being here. I know, in a late afternoon, it gets a little challenging, but we thank you so much. Oh, and somebody, trends in e-cigs. So this was purposely meant, and I have about 30 seconds, explicitly meant to be a toolkit training. But like I said, we do also give a lot of talks, and we have information on e-cigs themselves, including on the landing page or the COVID page. There's also a recording of me giving a full hour talk on e-cigarettes. So if you're interested in learning more about e-cigarettes themselves, we do give those webinars, and also look on that page, on the COVID page at the end, and you'll see a link. You'll click on it, and there's a webinar that's on there. And again, email me for anything that you can't find. I know the toolkit's pretty overwhelming. Thank you for that question. All right. Thank you so much, Richard. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your help in with the chat. And thank you, everybody, for being out there and attending virtually. And I hope everybody has a fantastic and safe rest of your summer and a good start to the new year. Take care. Bye-bye.